The next entry into the Battlefield franchise has just been announced. DICE has released what seems to be a single-player trailer for Battlefield 6. From this trailer, it's a little hard to get any concrete details about the gameplay, but we can get a few ideas about the game and how it might look on release. At first glance, we can see that Battlefield 6 seems to be set in the present or near future, similar to other fan favorites Battlefield 3 and 4. This is a great sign for a few reasons. The first is we should be getting a more grounded experience compared to other recent releases. With Battlefield 2042, the developers took a lot of liberties with the technology and abilities that players had access to. Things like gliders, wall hacks, and vehicles were pushed to a level that seemed far outside what's actually possible, and this took away from the more grounded and realistic style that players seem to enjoy in other titles. Personally, I don't think it's always a bad thing for games to try crazy gameplay elements. It can help push innovations in gaming, but for years, players have been begging for a return to the classic Battlefield formula. Here we can see that the characters are dressed in modern military gear. All of their kit, helmets, armor, camo, it all looks close to current military gear, and nothing stands out as overly futuristic. Personally, I really like this style for Battlefield games. I think the modern military aesthetic is cool, and it lends itself to a wide variety of cosmetic and gameplay options. In addition to looking good, the modern style indicates that the game as a whole will be more grounded and realistic than 2042. It could just be single player, but we can see that the gear is slightly different on each character. I hope this means we'll be able to customize our multiplayer characters this way, letting us choose different equipment and whatever else to make our characters our own. Something like Halo Reach would be sick, where you can choose every little armor piece and pouch, but it never strays too far from the original aesthetic. Here we can see one of the top like comments on the trailer talks about how they want a more realistic setting, with gameplay and skins that aren't too far out there. I agree completely. I don't really mind crazy skins, but honestly, I much prefer a more realistic style for my skins. Another reason that the modern setting works well for Battlefield is for the diversity of attachments. I do enjoy Battlefield 1, it's one of the great Battlefield games, but one of my gripes with it was the lack of customization for guns, like with sights and attachments. Obviously this is because it's a World War I setting, and I wouldn't have wanted them to add stuff that didn't make sense for the time period, like we don't want a modern holo sight in World War I, but this left a little bit of a hole in the customization when compared to the crazy amount of attachments in BF3 and 4. So, since we're back to the modern times, we should be able to get a wide variety of attachments to fit our playstyle. Before we go and look deeper at the trailer again, let's look at some of the other top comments because they're voicing an opinion I think the community needs to keep in mind. Here we can see with 200,000 likes, Dark Zero says, "Remember, no pre-orders." This is because the Battlefield community has been burnt repeatedly by amazing trailers with massive hype only to get a broken, buggy mess on game release. Players spend all this money before the game even comes out just to get a broken game, and since EA already has our money, they aren't as likely to change this practice, and it takes them forever to fix the game and make it playable. So, I would urge everyone not to pre-order this game, because we don't want to pay for a product without knowing if it's going to work as advertised from day one. Now with that out of the way, I want to look at some more details of the trailer and see what we can find. Throughout the trailer, we can see shots of New York City. This would indicate that the game has a foreign army that's taken the fight to American soil. I don't think there's ever been a Battlefield map actually set in America. Usually it's the Middle East or somewhere in Russia or China, so it's a really interesting change of pace to see it in the US. From the trailer, it seems that whoever's invading the US is really doing a number on us because they're just leveling bridges and flying helis into buildings. With the shots of the president and his speech scattered throughout the trailer, I'm sure he's just responding to whatever attacks have been taking place in the US. This will definitely be a big part of the single-player campaign and could be an interesting storyline to see what DICE thinks a war in the US would actually look like. On the multiplayer side, I've often wondered how Battlefield maps set in the US would actually play, as we just haven't gotten any content like that before. If there is a New York City map in multiplayer, I want to know how this works out with the vehicle-heavy nature of Battlefield. In BF4 there are a ton of maps in cities, but they always manage to make it possible to pilot jets and tanks around without it feeling too claustrophobic. With a huge city like New York, they might have to work in Central Park or something to give the vehicles enough room to breathe. Nevertheless, I am excited to see what they do with the American setting, and I hope it's not just for single player. Another setting that jumped out to me was the map in Cairo, Egypt. Originally, I didn't know which Middle Eastern city this was, but in a few shots we can actually see the pyramids, so that lets us know it's in Egypt. This is actually really cool. Rather than another modern shooter having us fight in the 500th generic Middle Eastern town, we actually get a defined location in a country that usually isn't depicted in a game like this. Personally, I hope the pyramids have some sort of involvement on the gameplay, like a destructive element, or just even being in the playable area like an objective. Could be a very fun map, and I'm excited to see it. The other locations shown in the trailer seem more like run-of-the-mill settings for a Battlefield game. We can see snowy maps with mountains, some more Middle Eastern towns, mountain ranges, and a few clips of a jungle map. These areas look a lot more wide open and spacious, which would be par for the course for Battlefield maps. Great for vehicle combat and large-scale warfare. Something interesting is this shot where we can see a naval assault coming from an aircraft carrier with amphibious vehicles. I'm wondering again if this is single player only or if this will actually feature in multiplayer, because I always enjoyed the water combat and beach pushes in Battlefield 3 and 4. It kind of reminds me of Karg Island, and that's definitely a good thing. The trailer does showcase a few different vehicles, like jets, tanks, and helicopters. It's good to see that these vehicles are making a return to the series, and it was to be expected. It seemed like the helicopters were prone to crashing into buildings to show off the destruction. These parts aren't actual gameplay, I mean none of the trailer is, but we can see that they're trying to showcase that destruction here. Hopefully there is some level of destruction like this, as the last few games have been lacking in that small-scale destructive detail. On the larger scale, we can see a few indicators that events similar to Battlefield 4's Levolution will be taking place in the game. Again, we don't know if this is single player only, but with DICE's record, we can assume that there will be some level of large-scale destructive set pieces in the multiplayer section. Hopefully these will integrate well into the gameplay and aren't just for show or wicked annoying to deal with. So, visually, it seems like DICE and EA are bringing the Battlefield franchise back to a modern setting. This is one of the many things that players like myself have been looking for, so this is definitely one thing to be excited about. The problem is, this trailer doesn't give us any more information than the 2042 trailer did. So realistically, we can't know anything for sure until we get our hands on the game itself. You may have heard that DICE has doubled down on specialists and not locking guns to specific classes. Stuff like this deviates from the classic Battlefield formula, and I, along with a lot of players, are worried about these changes. So again, we must wait and see until more info comes out before we can start to get too hyped for the game. The multiplayer trailer is dropping on July 31st, so I'll be sure to check back then because I'm mostly interested in the multiplayer side of Battlefield. Okay guys, that's what I have to say about the trailer for the new Battlefield game. I've been a huge fan of the series for more than a decade, so I'm really excited to get some new content from this game. I'm cautiously optimistic that it's actually going to be fun, but we will just have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys thought about the trailer yourselves, and if I missed any important info. Alright, I'll see ya.